guys, my name is Evan Randall, and this is Colorado Made. Today we are on the beautiful Auraria Campus here in Denver, Colorado. Today we are actually going to be starting off at the Tivoli brewery. So let's go check it out. Come on. Welcome and thank you for watching Colorado Made. My name is Evan and I am here with Ethan Day, who is the connection between Metro and the Tivoli Brewing Company. So pretty much, so what is your role here with the brewery?
So my job is split between, like you said, the university, the beer industry program there, and Tivoli Brewing Company. As a professor for the hospitality program, I teach classes in beer and beer quality analysis, and then I perform that function here as well. I help to manage and direct the quality control program for Tivoli Brewing Company. So my job is basically to ensure that from first drop to last, the beer that we produce day in and day out adheres to a very specific standard that we have set internally to make sure that all of our beer is consistent and tastes the same from first drop to last drop.
All right, and then so as most people know, we're kind of located inside of the Tivoli Student Union here, but not many people know that this used to just be the Tivoli Brewing Company. What kind of made those changes go into action?
So, we used to be Colorado's oldest brewery. We technically are still Colorado's oldest brewery, but just not continuously. So we were founded in 1859, and the brewery itself used to be, while we were open until the late 1960s, we were actually the oldest brewery in North America until we closed in the late 1960s, 1969. So that mantle has been passed on to Yuengling's brewery, to the Yuengling brewery. So we shuttered in the late 1960s because we had essentially two back-to-back disastrous events for our brewery. The first being the Platte River flooding, which is, if you were to look at the rest of the historic building here, we're split, we're a multi-level building, and a large portion of it is below grade, which means it's, we have essentially a basement. And what ended up happening was that when the river flooded, a great deal of the subterranean, as it were, infrastructure, so a lot of the original pipe works and everything for the ammonia chillers that we used to run and the lagering that was performed downstairs, all of that was destroyed during the flood. So that loss of infrastructure was a pretty massive hit. Following that, we had, hot on the heels, I guess you could say, of that event, within a couple of years, we had a worker strike, and that forced the closure of the brewery in 1969. But we opened up in the mid-2010s, about 4 years ago, and we've been brewing, beer in our own original building since then. But a lot's changed. We no longer own the building. This is now a state and federally deemed historic building, historic monument, so we don't control this building anymore. Even though it's named after our brewery, it's a historic register building, so we're not allowed to do a whole lot with it.
All right, and then I saw that part of the bar was actually kind of like memorabilia items that are like right below the bar top. Yeah. Can you kind of like talk about those for a brief moment?
Really, I mean, if you look at it, this is all really part and parcel of the history of the Tivoli Brewing Company. So you can see here we have a bunch of long necks, we have some of the original pony bottles, a bunch of the original packaging, all the stuff that really is part of the legacy of our brewery, and the storied history of our brewery in and of itself, all the way down to its founding, etc.
Hey there guys, I hope you're enjoying the show so far. Please stick around and we'll be right back. right, now since we're at a brewery, we do gotta talk about beer a little bit.
Sure.
So like, what is the most popular one? Like, I know that my favorite one is the Roadrunner Red. It's
Sure.
my go-to one every time I pop in here.
Sure, yeah. So if you want to look at the styles of beer that we produce primarily, we operate, I would say the majority of the time we operate as a brewery in the traditional mode of what would be considered a German lager house. So we produce a great deal of traditional German lagered beer. So if you look at the taps there on the far left and on the far right, we have the Helles Lager. That's I guess you could say our biggest flagship and our biggest seller, the biggest mover that we have as far as our lagers go.
Especially since the 3 taps dedicated to it just on this
and
side.
more downstairs.
And more.
Right. That serving tank that's up there is also dedicated to Helles Lager as well.
Oh, so that actually has beer in it?
Currently, I'd have to see the sight glass on the other side, but I do not know. I'd have to double check the sight glass. But yeah, normally we try to keep that sucker filled up, cold, and we serve beer out of it. So of the lagers that we have on tap right now, we have the Helles Lager in the middle there with the fourth from the left. We have the Bohemia Girl Pilsner, which is a German Pils. And then we also have one away from there. Third from the right is our Slam Dunkel, which is a fall Dunkel beer, which is a darker lager. And we brew that one closer to what most Germans actually would refer to as like a Dusseldorf style Dunkel beer, which is a slightly hoppier, lighter, crisper version of what you would normally get from, say, Munich.
All right.
In addition to that, your favorite, the Roadrunner Red, smack dab in the middle there, right next to the Bohemia Gold Pilsner. We also brew a German ale, a German wheat beer, which is the Mile High Hefeweizen. Very traditional, built German wheat beer, but we use a different strain of yeast that's a lot more aromatic, and it gives a lighter, drier, crisper finish on it, so you can drink way more of it. And then we also make a Brut IPA as well, which is a relatively modern style of IPA. It's a Brut IPA and named after essentially like a Brut champagne. So it's very light, it's very crisp, it's still lightly bittered, like an actual, IPA would be, but the focus is less on the bitterness and more on the really clean, dry, crisp finish and a really big aromatic bouquet.
All right, and then out of those ones, like, what's your favorite one?
That's like asking me what my favorite, which of my children is my favorite. I love all my children. I love all of the beers that we make. It depends on the time, the season, and really what I feel like. Any beer can be a fantastic beer as long as it suits the time and the place. I mean, if I were going to be mowing my lawn in the middle of 90 plus degree heat, am I going to want to drink a dark chocolatey rich stout? Probably not. But am I going to enjoy something lighter like the Helles Lager, the Roadrunner Red, or the Brut IPA? Sure, those would all be fantastic. If it's a lot colder or towards the fall, we traditionally like to gravitate to something a little bit darker, a little bit more malty. The Slam Dunkel is fantastic for that. We also have the Siggy's Bock style ale that is coming out very soon. We just started canning that, putting it into kegs as well. It's going to be out in market relatively soon. And that one's also going to be a little bit beefier, a lot maltier, richer, a little bit sweeter, but still finishes very clean.
So you've been working with beer for how long now?
So in terms of my capacity as working in a brewery, I would say it's been about 2.5 years so far, including consulting work that I've done at breweries around Colorado.
So what drew you to that?
I would say that my background as a scientist is steeped in, I guess you could say, chemistry, specifically organic chemistry, and physics as well. But one of the things that is pretty apparent to anybody who goes to graduate school is that when you're a graduate student, you're paid, but you're not paid super well. So like a lot of home brewers, I want to drink good beer. And if you want to drink good beer, then if you can't afford to buy that good beer, you have to make it. Right? And so being a chemist, predisposes me to liking, tinkering with things like recipes, cooking, brewing beer. It's something that I enjoy doing. And when I became a chemistry professor here initially, they tapped me to be part of the beer industry program. And frankly speaking, I really liked it. And there was an increased need for me to be a part of the program, more or less, full time. And so I shifted my position out from the chemistry department to the hospitality program for the beer industry program. And I really just haven't looked back since.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time, Ethan. Join us later, and we'll be visiting a distillery down in Arvada. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Guys, welcome back to Colorado Made. We are now here in Arvada, Colorado at Talanoa Distillery. Let's go check it out. All right, guys, thank you for coming back and joining us here on Colorado Made. Today I am here at Talanoa Distillery with Patrick Miller, who is the founder and head distiller here.
Correct, yeah. I'm really happy to be here, man. Yeah.
Thanks for joining us today. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you kind of got to having your own distillery here.
Yeah, so we started, our name Talanoa is derived from the Gaelic for new land or new world. It's about bringing this single pot still style of whiskey that we make over to America. So we're the first distillery that makes this style of whiskey. So it's really important to us to have that heritage. We're the only brand outside of Ireland that makes this style. It's the use of malted barley, but more importantly, unmalted barley because of English malt taxes that were levied against the Irish that the Irish were not going to pay. They started using raw barley in their mash bills instead of malting all of their barley. So we use this old traditional style of mash bill making along with our triple distillation to really bring this style back to the United States. It's been gone since before Prohibition, and you could only get this style back from Ireland in 2014 and in Denver here in 2015. So really trying to bring this old traditional Irish style of distilling back, but with an all-American terroir, all Colorado grown barley, water from El Dorado Springs, and then new American white oak in all of our whiskey lines as well. So we started in 2017, opening the distillery, doing all the build out, getting all the whiskey made and into barrels, and we just opened on St. Patrick's Day this year. So we're brand new, literally been open 6 months and a week. So we're really proud to be part of the Colorado landscape for sure.
All right, and then so with all the alcohol that you have, there's got to be a way that you test it out before you go and bottle so many bottles of it. Sure.
Yep, so a few different ways. One of the great things is getting to taste whiskey as it comes out of the barrels, but importantly, tasting whiskey as it's being made and coming off of the still. We focus on our triple distillation, which provides us a series of cuts where we cut the whiskey down so that we really take the heart section that we want that will go into barrels. That really makes the body of our whiskey, the spirit of the whiskey, needs to be good tasting coming off of the still to be good tasting coming out of the barrel. So a couple taste points. One is testing it as it's coming off the still, and then two, testing it to blend batches together of whiskey to marry barrels so that every time we make a batch, it's a perfect marriage of barrels that inform the flavors of that batch. Because barrels are really unique creatures, so at times they can compete with one another for taste profile and some of those kind of things. So you really want to make sure that when you're selecting those barrels, the flavors that go together best come out in that batch. So
hey there guys, I hope you're enjoying Colorado Made. We'll be right back with Talanoa Distillery. All right, so what do you do to choose those barrels to marry them together?
Yeah, absolutely. So we typically pull barrels out onto the floor that we know are close to being ready for that batch. So when they're at their mature age, we will take those barrels, lay them out, get a bunch of glass beakers and glassware out, and use what's called a thief, our copper thief, that allows us to pull samples from that barrel and fill individual containers so that we can sample those and then blend some of those barrels together in beakers so we know which barrels play best with one another. So it's a process of us kind of doing that work outside of the barrels in glassware before we actually dump that entire barrel to select it. So we know that every barrel that went into that batch was a perfect creature that married well with all the other barrels in that batch.
I'd kind of like to ask you to kind of touch on your different kinds of alcohol here, because it looks like we got a nice little selection.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have 2 gins and 2 whiskeys. Our gins are made in that Dutch tradition, if you know, called the Dutch Genevier style of gin. The orange and the Irish flag was a King William of Orange, he was a Dutch king who had the Irish make the king's drink when he took the throne from King James during the Glorious Revolution. So we have 2 gins that are made in that old kind of Dutch Genevier style, triple distilled in our copper pot stills, unlike a London dry that's made in a column still that really neutralizes the flavor of the grain, and then the botanicals are added to that. Ours is made in copper pot stills that adds a cereal sweetness to the bottom of those gins, but still has that nice botanical profile, but is kind of a little bit more on the delicate side. So we have a clear gin. That's the beautiful gin thing about gin, is that it comes off the still and is ready for bottles. So in about a week and a half, I can have a packaged ready product. We then have our barrel-aged gin, and our barrel-aged gin is aged 9 months to a year. You don't age gin quite as long as you do whiskey, because barrels are beautiful creatures. They're watertight, but they're not airtight. Actually volatilize out some of the more delicate botanicals, can evaporate out of the barrel. So you don't want to age that for too long to really maintain that bouquet. We have 2 whiskeys as well, a blended style of whiskey and a single pot still style of whiskey. This blended style is the mix of that pot still style that I described, that unmalted and malted barley style, blended with corn and wheat whiskey that really makes a light, bright note whiskey. So kind of a lighter everyday drinking. The beauty of the blend is that it has those lighter notes that kind of make it a really approachable style of whiskey. Then we have our full-bodied single pot still, triple distilled in our copper pot stills, 50% malted barley, 50% unmalted barley, and aged in new charred American white oak quarter cask. So nice bold flavors and a really velvety mouthfeel that you get from the texture of that unmalted barley. Kind of beautiful spicy notes that really drive out of this Carrodare whiskey here, our single pot still. It's our really heritage style of whiskey here.
So with Talanoa, I was kind of wondering about the logo you got here, the ram. What's that really mean for the liquor line you have here?
Yeah, absolutely. This is the ram is Colorado's state animal. So being here in Colorado, it's really important to us that we use kind of all Colorado barley in our mash bills. So it's something that really speaks to the heritage and the terroir that we're trying to bring, really the Colorado tastes and flavors of our land that are using this old traditional style of whiskey making, but is really all American through and through with Colorado at the center of that, of our barley, our water, and it has that heritage of it just being our state animal standing on the flat irons to kind of indicate that we're out on the front range, not deep in the Rockies, and the ram's looking back to the east under the Triskel moon, kind of where the heritage of this style came from Ireland. So having that history kind of built into the logo, but also representing who we are and where we are, where this whiskey is made.
Well, guys, thanks for joining us today here on Colorado Made. Remember, my name is Randall, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
It's very fun. We learn about how to use equipment in a TV studio, and we get to go out and use equipment on campus and work together as a team, and we've learned lots so far. Just being able to get hands-on and use everything before actually going out into the industry and being thrown into it. So it's nice to get your hands on everything and use all the equipment before you kind of just go to a job.
I really love this class because it has given me a new perspective on what it's like to do TV production, and it's something that I didn't think I was going to like, but I'm realizing that I actually really love it. It's really productive. We've already done like 2 shows, and I'm excited to see everybody's show by the end.
It's been pretty exciting. It's a team-based kind of build, and a lot of really important, really unique personalities around here, so I really enjoy it. Probably the hands-on production side. I like the ability for everyone to get their hands dirty and be able to do everything that will be a real part of the industry.
I am in the TV production class. It's been a very important and exciting experience that we've had, just to get some good hands-on experience before we get to graduate.
Hi, my name is Billy McDermott, and my experience in TV production in this class is so far, it's been really fun, and I love doing like the team-based environment in this place. So far it's also my favorite class at the moment.